Welcome to Pints of Interest in our final episode of this shirt series. What we're going to be doing this time is Evil Twin Brewing's Disco Beer. This is an Imperial IPA. Now, because it is an Imperial IPA, we decided to go with the snifter and the traditional pint. And because this is a smaller bottle, we just have these two glasses, which we'll be sampling from for this. Another thing we want to note here is that this is actually the red cap version of the disco beer. Now, the difference between this and the other version is that this was brewed with darker malt and a red wine as opposed to a white wine when it was aged. It was aged on the
Chardonnay barrels.
Barrels.
Interesting.
So red instead of white, and this is a specialty one. So I didn't even realize that when I picked it up. So maybe we're in for a bit of a treat. All right, so we're going to go ahead and give this one a taste, and we'll see you on the other side. Disco Beer is brewed by Evil Twin Brewery. It's an Imperial IPA. It costs $10.99. The ABV is 10.5%. The glassware to use is a snifter or tulip. You can also use an oversized wine glass. The serving temperature is between 57 and 61 degrees. We had this at 61. And its availability at the time of this review was limited, meaning it was only brewed once. Alright, and we're back from the tasting and discussion of this very interesting beer that we've had. How'd you feel about the aroma out of the pint glass?
You had a bit of the resiny hop smell with maybe a little bit of grass, not too strong. Though there was a hint of fruit there, which was a little unusual.
Yeah, for me, that fruit note was kind of like a peach. Okay, so for the taste of the pint glass, really with this particular one out of the pint glass, I mean, I got the same thing, the sweet, the fruits, the resin kind of sweetness that goes through it, and it really ended with a kind of warming wine alcohol. How'd you feel about the snifter?
Yeah, I got a slight fruity hop flavor. Now that's kind of strange to describe. I tend to like Merlot wine. I don't drink it all that often, but when I do, that's what I prefer. So, but it has a bit of a drier finish to it, so that's what I get from this as well. It's not as dry as some of the other ones that we've had, but it does dry off on the end for me in that respect.
I have to agree with the snifter. I got the exact same thing on the beginning. It's kind of like a fruit hop. For me, I use the word prickle.
Okay,
That there was just like this little flare of it. And it was gone. Like the hop it was real mild. It was real underneath thing, like Ryan said. Like it's tough to find the IPA qualities in this because of the wine. And then it kind of had like a nice mild fruit resin throughout, and it didn't have that fruit wine kind of alcohol ending that this had. This was just a nice mild and just rounded out nicely on the finish, where this had the kind of a warming alcohol finish to it.
Yeah, and I too thought the general flavors of the beer came through better in the snifter.
Yeah, I think we're pretty much all agreeing snifter.
Yeah,
Without a doubt on this one. This is another very clear-cut case that snifter, which is the appropriate glass for this, or one of, there's other, I believe you can also use a tulip or something along those lines if you'd like. But for us, the snifter worked out best for this. So how do we feel overall about this particular beer? Which is very much, I might add, like out of our wheelhouse kind of thing. Wine, really, at least for us, wine is not something that we partake in. Tom obviously might be a little bit different on this, but this is an interesting beer for us.
I liked it. I enjoyed it. I would have to say try if for the adventurous, because it's definitely unusual. This is not probably your typical beer drinker's beer, because a lot of the qualities you look for in beer have been muted or changed because of the aging process. It's also kind of a tough recommend because it is a one-off kind of thing. You know, they only really brewed one run of it, so even finding it again, even if we wanted to say, hey, I really wanted another one of those, we might have a hard time finding it. So.
Yeah, we're not necessarily sure of the availability of it or how large of a batch it was when it was originally brewed. Or maybe, you know, it'll be prove popular and be brewed again.
maybe they'll bring it back.
They won't make it quite as limited as it appears to be initially. I'd also agree with Ryan that it's a little weird to kind of classify this. If you're looking for an IPA, keep looking. This isn't what you want. If you want an Imperial
You
IPA,
wouldn't even know what an IPA was
if
if
you
tried
want
that
an
first.
Imperial IPA that does something different and it's real interesting, especially if you like wine, yes, absolutely try this one. I'm gonna go along with Ryan on this. I did enjoy it. I think it's a pretty darn good beer. It hides its alcohol fairly well in the appropriate glass there. We probably could have served it just a little bit colder than what we did.
It got a little warm by the time
When we're
we
at
actually
that
got to it.
61, we're right on the upper cusp of what it should be. We probably should have it a little bit colder, so as we're trying it and it warms up, it still stays within that appropriate range. So that is something to consider with when we had it. But yeah, I'm in the Tri-F with this just because it is pushing the bounds of beerdom and stuff, and bridging that gap between wine and beer.
I, however, am going to branch out from these guys and actually say recommended. I really liked it. Even if you do like wine, this is still a weird one because it's not near a wine, so you can't think of it that way. It adds those aspects to it, the flavors, the dryness, things like that. But yeah, if you like wine and you want to venture out into a beer and you think that this is going to help you do that, I don't think so. But I really did like this as an Imperial IPA, and I'm actually surprised at how well it hides the alcohol as it warms up.
It does do that
It does very well.
Absolutely.
But I'm going to go for the recommended for those that have experienced IPAs and do like Imperials and things like that and want to try something different in that regard.
All right.
That's why I recommend it.
So then I think what Tom's really saying is try if. With all those caveats onto the recommended, what it really is try. No, he's going recommended, we're going try if. I think it's pretty clear that, if you have some inclinations towards wine, want to see how it mixes with a beer, this is a great one to try. I'd actually almost say this makes me think of some of Dogfish Head's more interesting brews that they did,
some of
such
the
as
stuff
Noble
where they really
Rot, the
go
Black
out there
and Blue,
Try weird.
and the Red and White.
Yeah.
It's along those lines, and it's nice to see someone else, doing something kind of interesting like that and really pushing it. And I think it succeeds. It's just pretty much comes down to how you feel about that wine taste and how much IPA that you want to have come through.
You should try this beer if you like vinous beers and dry red wine, if you like unique beers and the price isn't an issue, and if you like your Imperials warm but not too boozy.
For Evil Twin Brewing's Disco Beer and Pints of Interest, we say cheers.
Cheers.